Hi, my name's Kerry Martell. I'm the editor, writer for the Yamhill Advocate, which is a weekly newspaper here in Yamhill County, which has been talking about the truth of what's actually taking place. Because a lot of the more mainstream media, they're just not sharing the truth. They have a bias. It's just the truth. Okay, they have been sent everything, the hundreds of screenshots of private communications from Facebook groups that have been used to organize a conspiracy against the residents of the county, in particular Newberg, Oregon. And they're not printing it. Instead, they're printing their press releases only. They're not sending you the truth. So I'm your only source right now. Just kind of how it is. The one person willing to print it ends up being the one person to print it. I don't know what more to say about that. This video is going to be a hard subject for some people to hear. It just is. Now, in my last article, I printed some facts about the Recall Dave Brown campaign, and in it, I pointed out that there is a church here in Newberg that is very involved in the shady, unethical, I think even illegal conspiracy that has been organized against Dave Brown, Brian Shannon, Renee Powell, and Trevor DeHart, who are the school board directors here in town. They've been part of it, and it's been going on for years. It really has. And some people don't like that I'm criticizing a church because I happen to be an atheist. But here's the thing. Maybe it takes an atheist to come in here to the situation and look at it with some fresh eyes and point out what is taking place is wrong and is not actually Christianity. I was raised here in Newberg. I was born here in Newberg. I went to school here in Newberg, in both the public system and a private school here in town, Open Bible, which is now C.S. Lewis. I read the whole Bible. Gosh, I must have read the whole thing by the end of the second grade, okay? I'm very familiar with Scripture. I'm very familiar with not just what's in the Bible, in the various versions of the Bible. I'm familiar with what happened that is after the Bible, okay? History is my favorite subject. And you can't really understand history if you don't understand people's religious beliefs. I've studied pretty much every major religion that there is, okay? From Christianity to Shinto, okay? I know their beliefs. I know how their beliefs have changed over time. I've studied religions that are basically just cults. They're, a flick of a flame, were around for maybe a couple hundred years at best, maybe 1,000 years, don't exist anymore. I've learned so much about people's religious beliefs. It's one of the reasons why I am an atheist these days, but I'm not here to convince you to be an atheist. It's not the purpose of this. My purpose is to remind people what Christianity is actually about and why it does form the basis of the United States of America, and how there are people who are pretending to be Christians. They are pretending so they can deceive you and operate toward their true religion, which is critical race theory. Critical race theory is being talked about in the mainstream news right now. You've got the very left-leaning ones that want to say, oh, it's just a political theory that's taught in legal schools, which is a lie. Then you have Fox News, who says it's just a form of Marxism, which is not 100% true either. Because even though I think Fox wants to tell the truth, the reality is that the people investigating this at Fox, they really don't understand what critical race theory is, because you have to read the original books. You have to read the books of the authors. You have to study the activities of the people who champion critical race theory as an ideology, as social activism. And doing that will disgust you. If you're a normal, good person, trying to study these people, read these things, it will disgust you. So I get it. I get why they have a surface level understanding about critical race theory. But here's the thing, right? Critical race theory, I like to compare it to Scientology. Scientology, most people are familiar with it, especially because of the documentaries that have been produced over the past 5 years that have informed people what Scientology is, okay? So Scientology is a cult. It's a belief system. It's a religion that pretends to be a science. They pretend to have mental health care. They pretend to have all these, doodad electronic devices that can measure pheton levels and things like that. Okay, they're a pseudoscientific thing. However, they're really a religion, and they wrap their religious beliefs in science-sounding terms. Okay, like having meters and gauges and things. Okay, that's what Scientology is. It pretends to be a science to hide the fact it's actually a religion. Critical race theory, likewise, pretends to be a political theory, in particular Marxism. It pretends to be this, but it's actually a religion. The main reason I say that is because the core principle, when you strip everything else away from it, what is the core thing that people believe that's different than in any other form of belief? The belief that's different and unique is that people that are born white owe a blood debt, a debt for the wrongs that other white people have done, whether or not they're even related to those white people who did the bad things. Blood debts are not a political idea. They are a religious idea. It's a religious idea. Why should I owe a debt to somebody else for something I had nothing to do with? Oh, because I have the same skin color as them? That's a religious idea. That is a spiritual belief. It's a belief in a spiritual debt that is owed for other people because you're part of a group of people, a tribe of people that's been formed along a spiritual line. They don't use spiritual statements, but that's what they actually are. Just like Scientology does not use a spiritual stuff. It claims to be a science. Critical race theory claims to be a religion. And that's just the truth. Excuse me, they claim to be a political theory, but they're actually a religion. And in fact, if you really think about it, their beliefs are contradictory to Christian beliefs. That's the thing that I find to be most ridiculous about people who claim that they're Christians, but they are espousing all of this hateful critical race theory nonsense. Okay? Let me explain to you what I mean. Most people generally understand that the United States was founded in a couple different ideas, right? The Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. They all talk about what's basically referred to as Enlightenment philosophy. Natural rights that people are born with, God-derived rights, equality. These are Christian ideas, actually. Even the separation of church and state, freedom of religion, those are Christian philosophies, actually, you see. Now, a lot of people don't seem to know that because I've tried to explain this in some Facebook groups to people, and I've been challenged by the critical race theorists. Like, oh, how could it be based in Christian philosophy if they want separation of church and state? Well, you clearly don't know much about the history of Protestantism, okay? The challenge to the divine right of kings is where separation of church and state even comes from. Okay, it comes from the naturalistic movement. Quakerism is very much involved in all of that stuff. All right, that's what I find to be most disturbing, is that they've gotten into Quaker community here in Newberg, and they've convinced them to literally turn against most of what makes Quakerism Quakerism. It's completely insane if you think about it. So Enlightenment philosophy that forms the United States is very much intertwined with this Protestant level of movement that was happening back in the Renaissance and especially during the later half of the 18th century. Okay, that's what it comes from. So when people talk about the United States being a Christian nation, that's really what they're referring to. They're not referring to the fact that most of the citizens were Christians. They're referring to the fact that the United States was founded on Christian concepts, such as the Enlightenment philosophy, which led to the end of slavery. It is. It's just the fact of the situation. What a lot of critical race theorists focus on is history out of context. They focus on that it took, half a century for slavery to end in the United States. They talk about all the suffering that caused and so forth, and all of that is true. But what they don't talk about is the fact that some of the states did ban slavery as soon as the country was formed. They don't talk about how the slave trade was ended even by Jefferson himself during his presidency. They weren't importing any more slaves. There was a process that was being put into place to end slavery in a gradual way because it was so intertwined in the economy. That was the main difficulty. And slavery was ended. It even ended in a way that led to a violent conflict where half of the country had to fight the other half of the country. They don't talk about the fact that 99.9% of everybody who fought for the Union against the South fought and died to end slavery, because those are the principles the majority of the Americans believed in. Christianity, it was very intertwined with that. Quakerism was intertwined with that. Okay, the abolitionist movement. So when they talk about all these horrible, horrible things that have taken place because of the United States and its philosophy and its form of government, they don't talk about the whole truth. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about how it's been a process to try to create the state that we have right now, which is a great state, a great condition to have. We have the Civil Rights Act in 1964. We have the Americans with Disabilities Act even. We have all these social programs designed to help people lift themselves up out of poverty and upgrade their social class, which don't exist in almost any other country on this planet. I mean, even in Canada, we have better programs than Canada does. Why do you think so many people want to come to the United States compared to Canada? Okay, most people want to come here because we are the #1 place on earth that you want to live if you are poor and you want to upgrade your social class. We have the most means of helping people do this. That is why the United States is one of the greatest countries, if not the greatest, that's ever been created in all of human history. Okay, 250,000 years of human history. We are the #1 greatest country. And we've only been around for a couple hundred years, all right? That's just the truth. Rome was around for over 1,000 years, and they didn't end slavery. We did it within 50 years of the forming of this country. 50 taken 10 years or so. But you get the idea, right? Like what we've achieved is something to be proud of. And just because there was a process to get to the current state that we're in doesn't mean that you got to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But that's what they want you to believe, because their goal isn't to make America a better country. It's to dismantle it into a racially segregated society. And it's just insane to even have to say it in the year 2021. Why we're even talking about this. But it's the truth. You know, Ty Hardin Moore herself, who is now running incredibly for Yamhill County Commissioner, she co-wrote a document submitted to the city of Portland about creating black utopias, okay? They want racially segregated societies. That's what they want. They want to defund the prisons and the law enforcement so that we can have a state of anarchy. And they want all that money to go to themselves, to line their own pockets with riches. That's what they want to do. I don't know this is the facts. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy in the very real sense of the word. And they're trying to use other media to obscure this, to hide this, because they need you to do nothing. And they are trying so hard to convince people to do nothing. They shout you down if you speak out. They'll harass your employer, which they have been doing to people. I've got people who've told me their stories. They've spoken out on Facebook against these people, you know, arguing with them on some of the comment threads where this stuff gets exposed. And they just, as a group effort, these 600 people in Newberg Equity and Education, okay, they harass their employers, try to get them fired for what they've said, claiming that they're white supremacists, claiming that they're racist, and they're not. They're not these things. But they got all this huge number of people who are claiming it. And they're trying to change what is true by outnumbering people, by bullying people, by saying this is what everybody's saying, so it must be true. But that's not what makes things true. Things are true because they are true, because they are real, because there's facts. They're not true just because you claim it. They're true because they are true. And you use logic, science, to prove things are true. I mean, here's the thing. I've shown hundreds of screenshots, and none of them have claimed I didn't say that. None of them have. In fact, when they argue about it, they claim I've taken things out of context. Somehow, Megan Corvos believes I've taken her out of context for showing that she says I am a racist. I'm not really being racist in the same way that you're claiming it. Really, I think I am a racist is pretty self-explanatory. It is. It's very self-explanatory. There's no special context, okay? Everybody who's a racist thinks that they get some type of exception to be a racist because they're right. They're right, guys, okay? But no, she's wrong. She's wrong. All these other people are wrong who also believe the same things. They're just trying to justify their racist beliefs by trying to say everybody else must be a secret racist too, which is not. I'm not a racist. I'm not a white supremacist. I don't even believe in the concept of human race because it's a pseudoscientific idea. It just is, okay? Anybody who has studied the origin of racist beliefs in eugenics, it's pseudoscientific nonsense. That's just the truth. And what I find to be hilarious, I mean, hilarious because otherwise I'd have to cry if I couldn't laugh about it, but it's the progressive movement from the 1920s and 30s. They were eugenicists. This is just the truth, okay? So it's kind of interesting how people today are claiming to be progressives and advocating for racism, just like people did almost a century ago under the guise of eugenics and trying to claim, oh, our beliefs are scientific and historical and all this other crap, which it wasn't. It was a lie then, and it's a lie today, 100 years later, okay? It is. Megan Corvos is no better than some of these other people from a century ago who had a bunch of racist, stupid ideas, and they try to implement laws in support of their racist, stupid ideas. She's just another generation of them, okay? It doesn't matter that her wife is black because she's still a racist person, just like her wife is, okay? They have a weird dynamic that I really don't want to have to touch upon, but I might as well mention it because they tried to say, oh, how can I be against people who are black because I'm married to a black person? It doesn't matter, okay? You can be a racist person, clearly, and married to somebody of another ethnicity because you have a warped idea of values, okay? It's possible. It's clearly possible. Otherwise, you don't have someone saying, I am a racist who's married to someone who's black. It's insanity, okay? And if you try to understand insanity with logic and reason, you're just gonna screw up yourself. So let's move on. Let's move on to what's really important. Because I know that there's people that are deeply religious and they see that there's wrong things happening, but they have been conditioned to think of their Christian beliefs and the actions they're supposed to take in a way that is, first of all, factually incorrect about what Christianity actually wants people to do when you see things that are wrong. And two, in a way that is simply not helpful for resolving the conflicts taking place here in Newberg. So let's go first to what is going to be most controversial, an atheist person telling you what Christianity is. But listen to what I say, and you're gonna have a really hard time arguing with this because what I'm telling you is factually correct. A lot of people use things out of context from the Bible to try to justify not taking actions. Because here's the thing, right? This type of society we have today is so artificial, okay? Democracy is a very artificial construct. It really is. That doesn't mean it's a bad one. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm simply saying that it's not natural to our state of being. Humans have been around for 250,000 years. 250,000 years, give or take 10,000 years. It's an estimate, but at least 250,000 years, around that time. That's a long time. Recorded human history only goes back 5,000 years. So, span of human history and recorded human history is like this, okay? We've been around this long. This is how much we know about ourselves from recorded human history, okay? It's a tiny fragment, 5,000 years. Before all of, what were we doing before 5,000 years ago? We were running around in the woods with pointy sticks, fighting all of nature and our other people for food and safety, living in tiny little tribes. That's what we were doing. So if you want to look at the world we live in today, you have to understand that our genetic predisposition is not meant for the world we have today. It is meant for how we used to live 250,000 years ago. Okay? And if you don't understand that, you have really hard time navigating modern life. A lot of people have a really hard time navigating our modern age because humans are really conditioned to try to get ourselves fed and be safe and try to obtain that and stay in that little bubble of having a full belly and being safe. And we have to guard against that because it's not helpful. We now live in a world where you don't have to forage for your dinner. You don't have to fight a woolly mammoth for your dinner, guys, okay? And compete against lions and tigers and all these other crazy carnivores that want to eat you at the same time that you're trying to eat something else. We don't have to do any of that. I can sit on my butt, play video games all day, and do nothing for the rest of my life, and I'll make at least $3,000 for the rest of my life. You know why? Because I have all these other businesses I've used my computer to create that bring in passive income all the time, every month like clockwork. I can just sit on my butt and be a complete bum and do nothing and get crazy fat. And that's not healthy. It's not a healthy thing for a person to do because that's not the type of life that humans have lived for most of our existence. That's not what we're conditioned for. I have to make myself go work out. I have no tangible reason to work out because I don't have to hunt for my dinner anymore. I don't have to work for my dinner. I can do absolutely nothing and be fed. I have to go out and jog and lift weights to maintain my body in a healthy way if I want to have not just, a good life in old age, but even get to old age. I have to not do things like smoke cigarettes and drink myself silly. I have to use moderation. And that's what a lot of people have abandoned in our current age, is moderation. And this is relevant, very relevant to a lot of people's unwillingness to want to take action in politics, to be involved, to do the one thing, their one sole responsibility as a citizen of the United States, which is to vote. So your one thing you have to do, your one responsibility, is to be involved in the local process so that the community that you live in doesn't turn to garbage. Okay? That's your responsibility. And people have all these excuses now to not do it. And some of these excuses involves religion. They say Jesus said to turn the other cheek when somebody, does you wrong. But that's not what he said. It's not what he said at all. Jesus was specifically talking about a movement that he was starting and how the Romans were persecuting them and how they didn't have power. And he was encouraging them not to have a violent overthrow of the government and to use a better strategy to cause the social change that they wanted to create. That is specifically what he was talking about. And that context is often lost. It's often lost because, I'm just going to say it, the quality of Christian education in a lot of communities is not very good. You know what the Bible really is? A lot of people forget this. The Bible is not just a list of parables, okay? It's not just a bunch of rules for you to follow. It is a story. It is a narrative of generations of people who created a kingdom called Jerusalem, and how when the Romans took over that kingdom, Jesus came and started a revolution against them. That is what the Bible actually is. Think about it. It's not a document of how God made everything happen. That's not what it is. It's a document of how people acted in according to the religious teachings that they were told to follow, sure, but they acted, the actions were taken through people. It is a story of people whose the sum of their actions was to create the kingdom of Jerusalem. That's what it all leads to. And the New Testament is how once the Romans took over Jerusalem, Jesus came and started a revolution against that. What did Jesus do when he got to the temples and he saw the moneylenders had taken over and all the merchants? Did he just say, oh yeah, turn their cheek? No, that's not what he did. He and his followers literally threw the tables up of the money changers and threw them out of the temple. And then they blocked them so they couldn't come back in. That's one of the things that upset the Romans, if you recall what's actually in the Bible. Jesus was a revolutionary. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be a revolutionary. You don't have to be a revolutionary in the year 2021 United States of America. I'm simply pointing out that if you want to say that Jesus said that you don't have to do anything and just let bad people do bad things and all work out, that is not what the message of the Bible is. That is not what Jesus' message was. At all. Furthermore, the story of Christianity does not end in the Bible. Christianity started 2,000 years ago. The events of the New Testament, that was 2,000 years ago. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? Yes, it was. What happened after the Bible? The Christian movement revolutionized Rome. They became the predominant religion of Rome. That didn't happen because they turned the other cheek. It happened because people stood up and opposed things they thought were wrong. And they took actions. They became Roman citizens. They got involved. That's what happened. And that's the message here. The United States of America was founded in Christian philosophy, Enlightenment philosophy. It's one of Christianity's greatest products is this country because it is the first place in all of human history where people of different ethnic groups could come together and be united under a single nation and all have the right to vote for how they wanted their country to work, to be able to run for office. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are in the United States, you get one vote. Now, people will often say, well, people who have more wealth, they can use that wealth to run TV ads and buy influence. Sure. But people have to be willing to be influenced by these things. You have the power to say no. And nobody can take it away from you. I might be fired from my job if I speak out. Sure, but you can get another job, okay? You can get another job. Let's just be honest here, all right? Anybody who tries to tell to me, I can't do this because I'll lose something. Man, when I got out of the Army, I had nothing. I had nothing. I had to start over all over again. I was medically discharged from the Army because I had a bad reaction to the second dose of my anthrax vaccine. I was planning to be a career soldier. I had nothing else I wanted to do. And I had to find something else to do with my life. That's one time in my life I had to start over. I've had a lot of times in my life where I've had to start over. I've had businesses that were doing really well, and they did really poorly. I lost everything, had to sell everything off, moved to a whole different city with nothing. Nothing. Not even a place to stay. I've done that. Let me tell you the greatest, most important lesson that I've ever learned from life. You are not dead until you're dead. And it seems really obvious, but a lot of people, they think if I lose this and that, then my whole life's over. I'll have nothing. My life will be meaningless. And that is wrong. You're not dead until you're dead. Dreams are renewable. If you lose a dream, it is not the end of your life. You can move on. You almost certainly will if you're a regular person who is not held down by crippling clinical depression, which the vast majority of people are not, because that is a mental illness that needs treatment, that needs medicine to treat. Most people do not have clinical depression. They get sad, they get frustrated, they get angry, and they cry, but then they get over it, okay? You can get over this crap. You don't have to let people bully you with, I will lose my job if I speak out against things that are wrong. This is America. You can start your own business. You could take a laptop, just like me, and you can start your own businesses. I've got a bunch of them, okay? That's why they can't silence me, because there's nobody for them to complain to. I'm self-employed, so they can't complain about me to anybody. And maybe that's a privilege, but it's not really a privilege, guys. It's something that I created. How's it a privilege if I built the damn thing myself, okay? It's not a privilege. I earned it. So, don't let them bully you. Don't let them convince you that if you're a really good person, then you'll do nothing, because that is not what the principles of the United States is built on, and it sure as hell is not the principles that Christianity was built on. The story of Christianity is people who are being moved to action, to do good things, to build a good country. That's the story of it. And it doesn't end with the Bible. It continues on until we get to the United States of America, which is the embodiment of the greatest of all Christian ideals. I'm an atheist, and I'm telling you that's what it is, because it's what it is. It is a factually true statement. I didn't become an atheist because I hate Christianity. I became an atheist because I have too much knowledge. I have the curse of knowledge, if you will, okay? When you know too much about history, it becomes very difficult to believe in spiritual things. It's just what it is. And I'm not trying to convince you to have as much knowledge of history as I have. All you have to do is just look at what I've said, though. You can look it up, and you can see what I'm telling you is the truth. Nobody likes to talk about the darkest parts of human history, but I'm going to, because it really illustrates what I'm saying here. The most evil and vile people who have ever existed in all of human history is the Nazi Party of Germany from World War II. They killed 6 million people in the Holocaust alone. 6 million people within a decade. There is 3 million people in the state of Oregon right now, I think. That's the whole population of the state of Oregon. So, like, double the population of Oregon is how many people the Nazis killed just in genocide. Helpless people who couldn't do anything about it. They didn't have weapons. They had nothing. I'm not even talking about World War II. I'm talking about just the Holocaust itself. Did an army of angels descend from heaven to stop them? No. No, they didn't. Because this is what's true. This is what's factually true about Christianity. The story of Christianity is the story of people working to oppose other bad people. You have to take action. The Nazis would have continued on until the United States stepped up and fought them, which is what they did. Our grandparents did that. Okay? You don't have to do that. We don't have to use violence to stop the people in Newberg, because we have democracy. We have a republic. They are currently using the tools of our democracy, which are intended to build excellence and greatness and spread goodness, to do evil things, because other people are not standing against them. You don't have to sign up for war. You don't even have to turn over tables. All you got to do is vote. That's all you got to do. Use the tools of our democracy, the best embodiment of the Christian spirit, the best embodiment of that movement that Jesus is said to have started, to cause social change using good means, passive means, pacifist means, I should say, which is what voting is. Jesus never said, don't form a political action committee and recall Brandy Penna or Rebecca Pyros, 90s Penna, for being part of a conspiracy. Never said, don't do things like that. That's what Jesus wants people to do. They want you to take action against bad leaders. That was the whole purpose of all of the Gospels of the New Testament, is Jesus showing people, as a parable of his own actions, how to oppose bad leadership. That is not a passive thing. It is a very proactive thing, in fact. And it's that lesson that led to the United States being created in the first place. And sure, the United States, they had to use violence to do it. They had to use violence to do it because the King of England sent an armada to the colonies when they rebelled and said that they were a separate country. It was defense. They didn't sail off to Europe and bomb them in the harbors. They defended themselves. And don't let you have anybody else tell you differently, because that's the truth about the formation of the United States. That's the truth. It is a very good nation that we have. It is a history that is full of many proud moments, and it is full of some moments that we're not so proud of. But what resulted from all of that is a objectively good society where people do not have to use violence to get their way, to cause change. That is the greatest of all Christian principles, is it not? It is. Even I can see that. We are envious. Other countries are envious of us for that reason, because there are many places in this world right now that do still have violence as the predominant means of causing social change. It's very unfortunate. And our country could fall that way too if people don't take action. Look at Portland, for God's sake. Okay? Portland, they're using violence to try to create their way between two clashing political groups. Antifa, BLM, and of course the Proud Boy peoples, okay? And other associated groups. I don't endorse that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about forming political action committees. Put your name on the line that is dotted. Be a treasurer. Be a petitioner for a recall of Brandy Penner, Rebecca Pyros, Inez Penna. Get them off the school board, okay? There are members of the teachers union in town here in Newberg who do not agree with the direction that the union has been taken by Gallagher and Schneider. The things that I've talked about in the last article I just put up. They don't agree with it at all. Did you know that 30% of a union, any union, can petition to have it discredited? They will lose their union status if just 30% of the union members vote to decertify it. And you could form a new one without them. Yeah. So, do that. Just an idea. We've got city councilors who are part of the Newberg Equity and Education Group. You should probably recall them too, before they rezone Newberg and turn it into trying to find a really nice way to say it, but I'm just going to say it, a cesspool, okay? It's going to turn into Portland if they get to implement their policies, rezone, allow apartment complexes and tiny homes to be built everywhere in Newberg. It's going to turn into a mess. We don't have the logistics to support this stuff. There's not even a paper mill anymore. Newberg has lost jobs, good paying jobs, and they want to keep adding more houses that cost like $500,000 to buy. It's insane. And they're not doing it because they want it to be Newberg to be a better place. They're doing it because they think it's going to profit them. They think it's going to benefit them. And I'll talk about that more later. But it's like, you guys got to understand. People are doing bad things. You can criticize them. It doesn't make you not a Christian. If anything, it makes you a Christian to do something about it. Because that's what the story of Christianity is. It's people opposing bad people doing bad things. That's what it's about. You're supposed to move. A host of angels is not going to descend, okay? God's not going to send an army of angels to go vote in the recall election. That's not going to happen. You have to do it yourself. You have to take action against people who are doing bad things. And racially segregating children, which is what they're doing right now, is a bad thing. Grooming kids is a bad thing. Having high schoolers perform in drag so they can throw dollars at them and pretend that they're in a strip club in downtown Newberg is a bad thing to do. It's a bad thing to do, to form conspiracies and harass school board directors who have simply trying to get politics out of the school so that children will no longer be exploited by a cult. It's a bad thing to lie to everybody else and claim that they're white supremacists when they're not. When the actual racists are the people who are claiming the other people are the racists, pointing the fingers at them. They're lying to you. Lying's a bad thing to do, objectively. And that's what they're doing. And they're doing it under the guise of being social activists, under the guise of being churches. That's what they're doing. And they're getting away with it because people are convincing themselves that it's better for me to do nothing, to just be passive, to go watch Netflix and eat my hot pots and whatever else, okay? And not have to put my name on the line that's dotted. You have everything that you need to oppose evil. You have everything that you need. We have a democracy. We have a system of government that has worked for over 250 years and has built all of the excellence and prosperity that we enjoy today. But it's not going to be there if you don't use it and you let other people that want to dismantle America into a segregated black utopian society, the most ridiculous thing. If you let them do that, it's not going to be here for your kids. It's not going to be here for your grandkids. What we're going to have is violence. The violence from Portland will spill out to the rest of the state and the rest of the country, and that's what we'll have. Because you didn't stop these people in their tracks when they were trying to groom a whole generation of children in the public school system so that they'll grow up and want to join their fucking army. Which is what they're doing. So, long video, important video. Hope you get the message. Hope you understand what I'm saying. Start being brave, people. Be brave. Because courage is a good quality to have. Being scared is not. See you in the next one.